Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, and later we're going to be joined by Bryan Munson and Abby Barmore. As a full disclosure, we are taping on the front end of a on-3 trip to Nashville. So we're keeping this very open topics. But before we get into our opening headlines here, Husker Online Show is brought to you by StayHome.Care. They offer many of the same types of personalized care you might find in a nursing home, right in the comfort of your home. Whether it's your loved one is young or old, living with a disability, recovering from surgery, or simply needs extra help when they're sick, StayHome.Care provides consistent, compassionate support from personal care and companionship to daily tasks like laundry, meal prep, and assistance with appointments or outings. We're here when your loved ones need you and you can't be there. Give them a call at 402-205-2233. Check them out on their website. That's StayHome.Care. Your home, our care, StayHome.Care. Thanks again to StayHome.Care as our title sponsor of the Husker Online Show. But guys, I wanted to get into this topic out of the gates because we're getting a better picture of the future of Memorial Stadium. We know a major renovation project now is going to happen still. There's no pushback on that. It's going to happen after the 2026 season. So the year when Nebraska plays Tennessee, they will play that full home slate, and that's when this project is going to begin. But we're not going to find out the full scope of that until June as far as the final price tag, the final scope of what this project is going to be. But the one thing we did learn in this last week that was finalized was Nebraska has come in with a new concessions partner. And for decades, Nebraska has been with Premier Catering, which is an arm of Valentino. So essentially Valentino's catering brand kind of ran the stadium for them, which was fine for the years they did it. But as the stadium transitions to alcohol and other requests, and they want to bring in more amenities, they have signed an agreement with Aramark, who works with several professional teams, including the Kansas City Chiefs, several college teams, to run the stadium. So it's led into a hot button topic because when you think about a Nebraska football game, there's a few things that are synonymous with those games. Valentino's Pizza, Runza's, and Fairbury Red Hot Dogs. And, you know, what is the future of some of those things in the stadium? And I put a poll question up, Sip, on Saturday, and it got quite a response from Nebraska fans of the importance of having some of those things still in the stadium.
It's very interesting how much food is a part of our existence.
A $4, or I guess $6 now, piece of pizza.
Yeah, but it is. I get it. It's part of it's become part of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Premier Catering, 30 years. I mean, it's been 30 years. So since I've been involved,
they served Robin's wedding.
They did.
They did.
We had our reception at the train station down in the Haymarket, so we were required to go through Premier Catering.
Did you have Valentino's Pizza?
We did not have Valentino's Pizza.
Premier Catering, I mean, I
asked for it. They wouldn't provide it.
Do it.
Yeah, so your poll question, Sean, there's over 700 votes, and 90% of the responses want to keep Runza and Valentino's in some capacity. Now, the split is whether they should just keep them with a sweetheart deal, or as long as they properly bid to remain as a vending option. 52, just under 53, want to keep them with a sweetheart deal. So I think the nostalgia of it is a big part of that. I mean, like, people grew up getting a Runza at a football game or getting a slice of Valentino's pizza. So there's like that association with those brands and those foods that people don't want to get rid of, while also maybe wanting a little bit more variety to choose from.
Here's the deal, guys. Valentino's contract is up in June, while the contracts with this is straight out of the, I don't know, I think it's Husker Extra. Valentino's contract is up in June. The contracts with Runza and Wimmers have 2 years left. So there's no panic on the Runza Wimmers.
It's all vowels.
Yeah, it's no panic on the Runza Wimmers front. The issue immediately would be vowels.
Mm-hmm.
And Dannon he's, according to the reports I've read, he's sort of strongly recommended that vowels be part of it to Aramark. But it's Aramark's call. Wow, this is a fascinating conversation to me. That it's this important, but it is. I will tell you, if I was a fan. Now, listen, I know I'm an outlier on a lot of things in this world, a big time outlier on a lot of things. It wouldn't bother me one bit. Like if I was a fan, there'd be some other food there. I'd just get a soft pretzel. I mean, and go on with my life.
And to put it in perspective, Aramark,
God, I'm probably gonna get whacked for that, ain't I?
Probably.
is heavily investing right now. They anticipate the athletic department will make 5.8 annually. Aramark has also agreed to invest $10 million to improve the concessions in the stadium. And Troy Dannon, to kind of paraphrase a comment that he made at the Regents meeting, he's like, we're not running like a mom and pop high school concession stand, and kind of taking a dig at what it kind of was. I mean, Nebraska, let's face it, like the concession setup was not like a high level, when you go to like a professional game,
right? We're talking about Memorial Stadium.
Yeah. I mean, it's very grassroots, mom and pop, Cub Scouts serving food, and, just like a very old school approach. But when you start bringing in the alcohol, that changes the whole thing.
I think that's a lot of it with Aramark, because Aramark has done that. I mean, they have overseen that part.
And they're the company that runs the Chiefs games, right, Sean?
Yeah.
So
Chiefs
like
several
so you
teams.
just went down there to Arrowhead not too long ago. What should people expect from this? Like, what's kind of the vibe with an Aramark concession stand?
Well, first of all, I know everyone's going to say the prices are high. That's every stadium pretty much in America, other than like the Falcons Stadium. But the variety that was offered kind of blew me away. Like you could get like a hot beef sandwich, an Italian sausage, a hot dog, a steak sandwich. I mean, they had every type of barbecue. Like you just kind of walk the concourse at Arrowhead, and they had everything. And Arrowhead's run down. It's not like a great facility anymore. But I was impressed with the number of vendors that were in the stadium. Like you could get like just the generic popcorn that they made, but then they had like, there's a local popcorn brand in Kansas City, kind of like Garrett's Popcorn in Chicago, and they had their own stands in the stadium too. I mean, they had different variety of things that you could get. I think it's called Topper's Popcorn in Kansas City, we always, of course, we hit that up.
Of course you did. If there's popcorn available, Sean's going to buy it.
Very fascinating discussion to me.
People are like, this is a football show. But yeah, this is a big part of the football experience at Nebraska.
It's a significant part of the game day experience.
Right.
And we still don't know what this beer and the alcohol it's going to look like. I mean,
no.
And how they're going to, because the bathrooms and the accessibility, it's not really set up great. And the other elephant in the room is, I haven't read this officially, but I don't think stadium reentry will be allowed anymore. Nebraska is the only stadium I know of its size that allows you to leave at halftime, to go out to your car. And as Bill Moose once said, we've got people that will go out to their car and shotgun 6 beers and come back in the stadium.
It's true.
And he thought it would be safer to have it all inside versus that scenario. That I think is going to go away. But one of the things Troy Dannon said in a recent interview is they have plans to make the Hawks Indoor Center kind of like a giant like space with food and drink and vendors.
That's what Colorado does.
And University of Oregon has a giant beer garden in their indoor facility. So the Hawks Indoor could end up being like a part of the game day where you're in the stadium and it will be gated off and you walk through and go in there.
That's what, like Colorado. That's a good.
Yeah, their whole field house is just a big concession area with beer vendors, food vendors, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've been to Colorado, that's the one that immediately comes to mind. I wonder if it would be like that.
I hope it'd be nicer than that, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a county fair concession stand.
Colorado's setup has not changed in like the 25 years I've covered Nebraska.
Here's what I'm learning today. You guys are much more discerning about this stuff than I am. I'm not discerning.
Well, I grew up going to the games. I understand the experience of the stadium.
Yeah.
You haven't had a stadium vendor meal in probably what?
40 years.
Yeah. So for you, obviously it doesn't apply, but for people that sit in the stands, like it's a big deal.
Well, I went to the NBA game and I did go to the concession stand, but I literally get a pop and a soft pretzel. I mean, it doesn't have a big impact.
You get like the most plain Jane order ever. A pretzel and
Well, I'm not that hungry during a game usually. That's the thing. So I'm different. It's interesting to me. This topic is huge. But I would tell you that if I was a fan, it wouldn't be huge to me. I'd just be one of the fans that are like, oh, I don't care what you serve.
I'm interested in the beer setup. Like, are they going to be able to have like tap lines put in these stands? Because
that's huge. Seriously.
Versus cans.
Right. Now that's where Aramark, that's where Aramark is going to come in And that's probably what's going on here.
Well, and there's going to
They
be
know how to administer is what we're talking about.
a lot of beers are going to want to be in there. Like our friends, our sponsors, Zipline, they want to be a part of the game day experience. So, and I think I'm guessing they will be. There's going to be some of that too. It won't just be Coors Light or Bud Light. You're going to see some of that in the stadium too. But yeah, there's a lot to chew on moving forward.
Literally.
And
Nice.
there's not even a shovel. There's not even a shovel in the ground yet.
No.
I mean, you almost got to be careful what you say in this discussion. It's like a political discussion almost. So, yeah.
I grew up a Runza guy, though. Like, and sometimes when I go to the games now as a veteran media member, I will get a Runza just for the nostalgia to make me think back to how it started. Like, hey, I went with my dad, we'd get a Runza.
That's beautiful.
And just think about, like, reflect on
It's poetic a little bit.
what we're doing here.
Really
you know?
is.
Like, I sat in row 80.
Runza.
I sat in row 80.
Or it's a damn Runza.
My mom worked at Runza as a high school student in Omaha.
Right. Nostalgia
Well,
in that Runza.
But we used to go to rock and roll runs, and that's a place I miss. That was kind of like a downtown Lincoln tourist trap, but it was popular. I mean, people used to go to that.
Hey,
Hey,
Sean-
Sip, there's a lot of people that feel just like the way Sean does.
There's nostalgia in the Runza. For me, there's heartburn in the Runza.
Just put some Splenda on it.
Guess we're not getting to run as a sponsorship on this show.
All right.
They're well healed.
Well, all right. When we come back, we're going to bring in Bryan Munson. He's going to be with us all week in Nashville. But we're going to talk recruiting with Bryan and get an update on where things sit. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, again, brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. Give them a call at 402-205-2233. Learn more about the services they offer. It's never too early to call and find out more about what they can do for you or the loved ones in your family. Check them out on their website, StayHome.Care. We're also brought to you by Omaha Steaks. And guys, with the big game this week, never better time. It's been warmer out too. I mean, to get the grill out, and not just steaks, burgers, brats, chicken, pork.
Brats.
They have so many different things at Omaha Steaks, a great Nebraska company, worldwide known. They have wings, and they have great bundle deals already marked down at Omaha Steaks when you go on their website. You can find whatever thing you're interested in. If you want a bundle that has more chicken, more steaks, whatever, side items, desserts, seafood, they have it. They deliver it to your house in a cooler, and it comes perfectly packaged, so you can just put it right in your freezer or thaw it out right in your sink. And go to their website, omahasteaks.com. Use the promo code HuskerOnline. That's HuskerOnline promo code. And Steve Sipple personally is going to give you $20 off.
Mm-hmm.
I am?
Yes.
Straight out of the check.
Every time the promo code is used, we deduct $20 from Steve Sipple's paycheck.
Jeez.
No, we don't do that. But
All right. That's a good deal. That's a good deal.
But we've been told we had to change the promo code up because the previous promo code is getting used so much. They were so impressed with our listenership that we got a new promo code, Husker Online, $20 off.
Look at it. I mean, look at that, those photos.
And it's Valentine's Day. You might want to get some steaks this week to cook up at home. Have a good filet mignon or lobster tail with your wife. You don't want to deal with the restaurant. Do it right at home.
Mm-hmm.
omahasteaks.com, promo code Husker Online. Let's welcome in one of our good friends, colleagues, Bryan Munson, who has covered Nebraska recruiting for well over 20 years.
There he is.
Joining us from the home base in Dallas, Texas. But we're going to be joined by Bryan this week out in Nashville. Bryan, thank you for taking some time to join us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, I wanted to jump in on it because it is the feeling of recruiting, and we've talked about this a lot, is so different, and it continues to change with NIL, with the early signing day, with the roster stuff, where, as a fan that follows recruiting, you've had to really change your habits and just your approach of how you look at things. What are your thoughts on just the state of that right now?
Yeah, I don't think we really have it all figured out quite yet. I think that you and I would probably agree that some of these programs don't have it figured out yet either. I mean, the ones that are out there chasing some of these recruits around that maybe are not those kind of guys you want to fill your class up with first. Like, let's be honest. I mean, there definitely seems to be a couple programs around the country right now that that look like they're playing checkers when everybody else is kind of playing chess. And it has been confusing, guys. And like I said, I don't think we truly understand all the impacts of several things. I think this whole JUCO thing threw everybody kind of for a loop, and you had these high school kids now that have kind of decided to step back and try that JUCO route. And then they're going to figure out, oh, hey, I'm not going to get that year of eligibility back. Now I'm back trying to find my way back into NCAA football. I think that that's another huge trap for some of these guys. And I think right now you're, without having that spring game to potentially that we always kind of plan on, and having at least the official visitors that Nebraska had last year, which were some pretty critical guys, Dawson Merritt, Cortez Mills, TJ Lateef. I mean, those are some real key folks in the 2025 class. If you don't have that opportunity that weekend and you lose another weekend before, going into official visits, and you don't give a chance for Ryan Mosley and Jabari Brady or somebody else to come in and see a game at Nebraska prior to having to take an official visit, it's going to be in the back of their minds. They don't know what a game day weekend is like in Lincoln. So there's a lot of stuff really going on right now that's going to impact the Huskers.
You wrote about it, Bryan, in your column last week. Nebraska, the impact of Nebraska's spring game going away on recruiting. It was really striking what you wrote.
Yeah.
What is your, verbalize it.
It's Nebraska home games to me has been, for all the time that I attended games prior to moving to Texas, prior to covering recruiting, that has always been the one thing that Nebraska cannot paint a picture verbally. They can't put you into an experience room, in the spring or the summer and make you feel like you're there. You have to literally walk out the tunnel and down the red carpet and out the doors and see all the fans and how things open up, and really hear Sirius coming over the PA system, and be out on the field and talking to Matt Rule and all these things. I mean, there's just no way to duplicate that. And that is Nebraska's biggest recruiting advantage. Now, I think that there's obviously others, and I think we saw some this last week, like with the junior day. Having the facilities done was a huge selling point for Nebraska. I mean, those guys were blown away by the selling point, by the facilities and what's going on. But that right there, being down on the field, talking to the guys, hearing the coaches coach the players, just hearing that kind of, hey, you know what? It's been 2 months of grueling work this spring, and now we're going to go out here and have this scrimmage in front of all these fans that we love and have fun. And I think that game right there to me is completely different than any other game, and it's just an experience. It's a total experience, and Nebraska possibly now will not have that as a recruiting tool when it comes to the 2026 class. And I think that's going to be very difficult to find a substitute for.
So, Bryan, high school recruiting is obviously in flux, but transfer portal recruiting is now the name of the game, and Nebraska just got a big one. Rocco Spindler, I know you got a chance to talk with him and reading your interviews, and then Sip stuff, talking with his dad and Tunnel Talk. He seems like a pretty fascinating guy. Like, how would you describe him? I mean, we kind of know about him as a player, but just from a personality standpoint, and what kind of fit do you expect that with the group that Donnie Raiola has?
Yeah, Steve and I kind of compared notes, I think, on that Sunday or that Monday, and I said he is just I'm looking forward to you guys covering him because he's just this quotable machine. I mean, when you don't turn the tape off, ever around that dude, because you don't know what's going to come out, and whatever's going to come out of his mouth typically is going to be pretty amazing. I asked 3 questions in a 5-minute conversation, and he just took it for a run, and it was fascinating. I mean, he's been through a lot. And this is a guy that I think, number one, has tremendous confidence in his abilities. I think he sees the bigger picture, that, he's a leader and that he wants to help, the not just go out there to become the best player he can possibly to help the team. He wants to help all the guys out there to his left and his right and across the ball from him. And I think that that's the number one thing that Nebraska gets here, besides seeing his tremendous PFF and, not allowing a sack and all the passing attempts this season for Notre Dame and just being a fascinating player anyway. I think Nebraska has a guy that they can put into the locker room, in the team room, that they didn't have before. They didn't have a guy that has this type of success, that has, 4 years under his belt, that he can go there and say, I've been there, guys. I've been on the run. I know what happens when you lose to an NIU during the season. You don't have to hang your heads. You don't have to spiral down into a deep, dark place. You can throw that stuff aside, get focused again, believe in yourselves, and guess what? You can run it all the way out to the national championship in the CFP. I think that kind of person in the room is going to be invaluable for Nebraska. And I know some people, kind of made light of, like, me saying about, like what Spindler said about those guys, wanting to go play for a national championship, and said, like, well, Nebraska's not going to play for that. Look, if you're not thinking that you're going to make a run at a national championship, don't play. Don't play. But this guy honestly feels like he can go to Nebraska and that they're a step or two away. And he could be a huge part of what helps that team and Matt Rule take another step forward and go from Pinstripe Bowl to hopefully CFP, right? That's really what you're hoping. And once you get through the door, he's a guy that also understands you don't have to be chalk to win the national championship. You don't have to be chalk to get to the national championship. Lots of things happen there, and you just got to be playing your best later on in the season, and then you can do some great things all the way down the line.
As we wrap it up with Bryan Munson, Bryan, I just wanted to ask you this. What do you think is, as you look at 2026 recruiting, based on the offers that have gone out, what do you think is the biggest area or two of need that they've been pursuing? And I know it's fluid. I always use that word in recruiting. It can change one day over the other. But what's your feel right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to overlook the offensive line aspect of the importance in this class. I mean, Nebraska brought in 3 guys last weekend, 2 guys that are true tackles, and Rex Waterman, who's playing tackle currently down there at Hamilton High School in Arizona, is really going to be more of a center or a guard. Greg Patrick, the nephew of former Husker Chris Patrick, was supposed to be there, and he's going to come back in the spring. So there's 4 names I think Nebraska fans need to kind of remember when it comes to offensive line. And then I think after that, I think it's really interesting what Nebraska has done, like with their board very recently. And I think that they've really gone out and addressed the secondary. There's one guy whose film was absolutely fascinating to me to watch. And I was totally blown away for not having watched his film before the weekend and watching it as I was typing up his interview. Dominic Turnbull, that dude's a player. That dude is like a 6'2", 6'3" long, boundary cornerback that can just run step for step with people. He's a gazelle. And I think the secondary, Sean, really, I think they have to frame up that back half, and get those guys right, those 5-6 positions, depending on whatever set you're in. And then I think obviously offensive line, in particular offensive tackle, they really need to land a blue chip, big time offensive tackle out of the high school ranks this year, in my opinion.
Well, Bryan, we're looking forward to seeing you in Nashville. And
we are.
We need you to be maybe a security detail for Steve Sipple out there for us. So
yeah, I've got to stay back like this. I can just
because when Sipple hit Broadway Street, I mean,
all bets are off.
All bets are really
paparazzi.
off.
I mean, they're going to think, who's that? Is that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift? No, it's Steve Sipple.
Yep.
Yeah, just bring those dark sunglasses, man. Just bring those dark, tip the hat down real low. They'll
like a black cowboy hat too that he can wear.
Give him some hot chicken.
That's it.
Well, Bryan, thanks.
Good job,
again.
Bryan. Good job.
See you guys tomorrow.
Okay, thanks again to Bryan Munson for joining us here on the HuskerOnline show. When we come back, we'll open the mailbag as Abby Barmore will join us. We have 2 mailbag segments coming. You're listening here to the HuskerOnline show. And we're back here on the HuskerOnline show. Sean Callahan, Robin Washett, Steve Sipple. Thanks again to Bryan Munson for joining us here on the show. And before we welcome in Abby Barmore for the mailbag, Stephen M. Sipple, this segment of the HuskerOnline show is brought to you by who?
Larson Motors with an O. If you're looking for a new vehicle, go for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. It's one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all of the major brands in one location. We do this every week. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram really never has been easier. So start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com. That's LarsonMotorGroup.com. Or just go to Larson Motors. Drive there. Go to Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people,
real deals. We're also brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. If you're interested to learn more about their services, call them at 402-205-2233. It is never too early to learn more about StayHome.Care and what they have to offer, or just check them out on their website at StayHome.Care. Thanks to StayHome.Care as our title sponsor of the Husker Online Show. Okay, Abby Barmore, let's get into it. Where are we starting off in the mailbag?
Okay. Who do you think are going to be the most improved offensive and defensive players next season?
Ooh,
Most improved.
I would put Riley Van Poppel maybe on that list of improved guys for me, because I think his role is going to have to increase. So that's one I'll throw out there. What do you guys think?
Cam Lenhart. I thought Lenhart was okay this year, but it was almost like he knew he was a year away from being a major factor because of the guys that are in front of him. The guys I'm talking about are Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher, and Jamari Butler. It was like Lenhart knew, unless one of those guys goes down, I'm going to play a backup role. Well, now he's the man. And Lenhart, we saw him as a freshman. I hate to say that. We always use the same terminology, flash, but he flashed and didn't flash as much this year. So let's see it. Let's see it.
What about Emmett Johnson?
Interesting.
He's going into the season as the clear number one. It's the first time in his career that's happened. And clearly Nebraska felt good enough about him that they didn't go out of their way to just go get a portal running back. And so that indicates a level of trust and optimism for what he could be this year. And you saw him during the dunk contest at that basketball game. He looked big. You commented, he looked like he got some bulk on him. So I'm very intrigued to see what that picture of a clear-cut number one Emmett Johnson over the course of a full offseason, how that develops and translates into the fall.
And also Quentin Ives, Mekhi Nelson, Jamarian Parker. Could one of those guys come out of the spring as an option? I do find it interesting looking at the running backs, though. The 3 scholarship returning running backs all redshirted. And it used to be a trend at Nebraska. If you were a dude at running back, you didn't redshirt.
Oh, yeah.
And every significant back during the run of backs, even Roy Halou, Rex Burkhead, Amir Abdullah, Corey Ross, you go down the line, David Horn, guys that played, they played as freshmen and they didn't redshirt. So it is a different trend now that there are 3 running backs that are the returners. All of them took a red shirt, which really wasn't the trend when you had NFL guys in this program.
That's true. Let's keep rolling.
All right, what do you got next, Abby?
Okay. Matt Rule said that the special teams coordinator wouldn't be recruiting, but now that we know it's Mike Eckler, he's a great recruiter. Do you think he will be recruiting?
I think when Matt Rule said that, though, he probably already knew he hired Mike Eckler.
Yeah,
am I wrong?
That was in the works.
No, you wouldn't be wrong, because it was like
a day later.
Less than 24 hours later.
Right.
It was Saturday morning. We talked to Rule. Monday morning at 8:00.
Okay.
Eckler resigned from Tennessee. Or 7:30 in the morning is when we got the notification.
But it wouldn't be that hard to put him as one of the 10.
You'd have to reshuffle your 10 for the spring. And you're only allowed at certain times of the year to take but they've already have their 10 designated coaches on the road, and all of those guys are back.
Hey, question on that. With a 10, how interchangeable is that? Like, do you have to say these are our 10 and only these 10 can go on the road? Or can you be like, this week we're sending this 10?
Yeah.
This week we're sending this 10.
No, you have to designate it on a certain point of the calendar. And the only way you can change it is if there's a staffing change.
Okay.
Or like a medical personal situation. Gotcha. So it's not uncommon for coaches that have surgeries in the off season when recruiting is going on, and that keeps them off the road. Just because, that's the only time they can do that stuff. So we've seen that over the years where a coach might have a surgery or medical condition that they don't want to travel with it. But yeah, I don't know. I think recruiting guys is different too. It's not the old fashioned winning in the living room, anymore like it used to be. It's a business the way recruiting is.
It's still viable though. You still got to be able to recruit. I've talked to coaches about this. I would say you don't really have to recruit anymore. You just offer a guy money, and they're like, no, there's still recruit.
But you're only going to go to their school like one time.
Yeah.
Mike Eckler can still interact with recruits on FaceTime and on the phone many more times than that one school visit.
Yeah.
Because in the spring, you can only visit a prospect one time. So if there's a key guy like those coaches, it's not like the old days where you could go see a guy 5 times in the recruiting period. So it's a different game.
Wow.
And you got to change with
Wow. That's a good question though.
All right. What do you got next, Abby?
Which position battles will you be watching the closest this spring?
We hit on running back, just like what that back end looks like. We know the front end.
Yeah, the back end.
Wide receiver. Got a whole new group outside of Barney. So how's the transfers, and then some of the young guys, like what's Quinn Clark going to do? What is Demetrius Bell coming off the injury going to do? Like, I think they've got a lot of young guys we just haven't seen much of that might have to take on some extended roles here.
It's kind of an old school question. It's not as easy to answer nowadays because there's so many interchangeable parts, and I don't look at it like I used to. There's not a lot of position battles. I mean, there's a pretty set group of guys that are going to play.
What if like the newcomers at receiver are better than Ja'Cory Barney, which is plausible?
I mean, it's possible Ja'Cory may have to battle for a job.
You would think he's guaranteed, but I don't know if he is yet. He's got to win it back or win it or hold it.
Mm-hmm. But you see what I'm saying? It's not as defined as I don't think it was 15 years ago. There's a lot of guys that play. So
there's some groups like linebacker. I mean, that's a wide open room right now outside of like Wright.
Well, Marquise
McCullough.
Watson, Trent, McCullough, and Wright. Those are your 3 probably that will start, right? I mean,
you think, what about McGahee? What about Shavers?
Oh, yeah, McGahee and Shavers.
They'll play.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
see what I'm
brought
saying
in these
is
transfers, but you also had these guys that were studs in the bowl game.
So what I'm saying is, there's battle for starting position, but those other guys are going to play.
Yeah, five capable players to play.
They're position battles. You're battling for a starting job.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is how important is a starting job when you guys
rotate.
do,
especially with how much they
when
rotate.
you rotate. Right, that's what I'm getting at. You guys do the PFFs. I'm always struck.
Now, will Butler rotate as much as Tony White did?
Oh,
I think you have to rotate though. You can't not rotate.
I mean, they rotated on the defensive line extensively. I'm just curious.
I guess
does that pare down, or do you just keep it rolling?
The way I look at it, it's a battle for snaps.
Yeah,
not really starting jobs. I don't look at it that way as much.
Yeah, there would be times when like Ty and Nash would come off the field, kind of in key moments to keep them
Keona White
rested.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Keona White or Keona Davis. Why do I mess that up every
His other name
time?
was Will Height.
Yeah.
It wasn't White.
Start calling him Kenny Wilhite.
Kenny
for that.
I'm not in peak season form right now. This offseason.
It's all right.
Really?
It's all right.
Okay, when we come back, Abby Barmer will stay with us and we'll continue the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Abby Barmer joining us for more mailbag. But before we get to that, again, we're brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. They offer many of the same types of personalized care you might find in a nursing home, right in the comfort of your own home, whether it's your loved one is young, living with a disability, or just recovering from a surgery, or just needs extra help when they're sick. StayHome.Care provides consistent, compassionate support from personal care and companionship to daily tasks like laundry, meal prep, and assistance with appointments or outings. We're here when your loved ones need you and you can't be there. Call them at 402-205-2233. Thanks again to StayHome.Care, our title sponsor of the Husker Online Show. Abby, what do you got? Where are we going on our next round of the mailbag?
Yeah, part 2. With Xavier Watts going high in the NFL draft, who are some of the best Nebraska-born guys that did not play for the Huskers?
Don't do this.
Well, Gail Sayers is like the top of the
one.
mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Station.
Larry Station went to Iowa from
he's-
Omaha Central.
Like Larry Station is on the Mount Rushmore of Iowa football. Like he's one of the best defensive players in their program history.
Was that Omaha Central?
Omaha Central?
Who else? There's not
Harrison
Phillips. That was the one I was going to say.
I mean,
Harrison Phillips went to Stanford.
Noah Fant.
Noah Fant went to Iowa. And, you talk about Danny Woodhead, but he wasn't drafted. So it's like, I mean, he climbed his way up all on
He's
his
up
own.
there. One Super Bowl.
God, people are going to kill us, Abby, because I'm sure we're not mentioning a few, right?
Oh, yeah.
But those are big ones. Those are big ones.
Off
Stations
the cuff, those
Yeah.
are up there.
Guys that went on to have long. I mean, there's definitely guys that went on to have good college careers, but maybe didn't have a pro career. So like that's where you have to separate. We're talking just guys that went into the pros. I mean, there are some guys that had very small pro or college careers that ended up having good pro careers.
Mhm.
Like Carl Nix, I mean, at Nebraska hardly did much, and then at one point before he got injured was the highest paid guard in the NFL.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did Station play in the NFL?
I think he did for a little bit.
Yeah, I can't
I
remember.
mean, he was on the Rose Bowl team.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what he did in the NFL. There you go, Abby.
I'm going to look that up. Larry Station's trip. Hold on. Keep talking.
Yeah, I
Don't dump us like this, Sybil.
I can't think
I turned the page on the
of
segment.
any others like that immediately
11th round
jump
pick.
out.
He wasn't highly drafted.
I don't know. I think we got the big ones. And
All
if
God,
we missed
are we
any,
missing
blow us
someone?
up in the
Yeah,
comments.
blow us up.
I'm sure there's like some high first.
Oh yeah, there's
rounder.
probably some obvious ones. We're gonna look at idiots.
No, we got the
Quarterbacks,
ones.
any quarterback.
Well, Nathan Enderle from Idaho, from North Platte, was drafted by the Bears.
And he played a little bit
And-
in the NFL. He did.
Well, and Easton Stick.
Oh yeah,
Easton
Stick. That's a
Stick.
good one.
Yeah.
That's a good
Both
one.
those guys are pretty good ones.
Yeah.
They both
I
play.
mean, North Dakota State had a run of Nebraskans that were pretty good that went to the NFL. I mean, there was the guy from Schuyler. Now I'm blanking on his name. I know his high school coach, Fred Doschler, and he was FCS Player of the Year. I mean, he was drafted.
That's a tough off the cuff one, Abby.
All right,
You're
what's
pretty
next?
good. Okay, if you could add one former Husker to this roster on offense and defense, who would it be?
And
Think of the names of this.
Oh,
Team.
come on. I'd say Lawrence Phillips would be a good addition
sure.
to the running back room.
Sure.
That'd be the one. I mean, just pick the best, in your opinion,
Well,
who
and like
the best running back
leave
is.
Sue out of it because Sue's like the no-brainer.
Well, if on defense, can't we pick Sue?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying like that's the one we're all going to pick.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
who would you take besides
Levante
Sue?
David.
One of those.
How about Prince Mukamara?
Grant Wistrom coming off the edge was pretty good.
Yeah. How about Aaron Graham? Center's a question right now.
Yeah.
I ran into Grant Wistrom at U-Stop this week. Like he's back
Aaron
in town.
Graham, I mean, I would probably go Remington or Dominic before
Okay.
Aaron Graham.
It was the first one that came to my head.
Yeah.
What about
You're
Wiegert?
younger.
What about Wiegert?
We would be good. They're god dang, all those guys would make a huge difference.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
sort of-
just pick a running back, really. Like, no offense to Emmett Johnson, but like
Amon,
they had a run.
Mike
Some pretty darn
Rozier.
good ones.
Yeah.
Well,
Calvin
what I'd
Jones
say
and
though
Lake
is
Calvin
that
Jones.
Rex and Amir had much better pro careers than like Lawrence Phillips did.
Well,
Well,
some extenuating circumstances. there.
not a good example there.
But those two guys had now Amon had a good pro career
Yes,
too.
he did.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh
I
yeah.
think he
All-time
retired.
leading rusher for the Packers.
Packer history.
Enough said.
Yeah.
Levante David, I look at his skill set, timeless. Like he would have been
Oh,
an All-American on any Husker team.
Yes.
But you take the big. You take Sue.
Yeah, that's the obvious one.
Sue's the obvious. Like Sue and Levante David are as good or better than any players from the 90s.
Sip, which running back are you picking?
Lawrence.
You looking
It's
Lawrence?
either Rozier or Lawrence Phillips.
We'll pick one.
Then
You're
Amon
going
Green.
Lawrence?
I would pick Lawrence
Okay.
Phillips.
All right. Next question.
What should Butler's top priority be this spring?
Ooh, that's a good question. Secondary play, right?
Third down package.
Okay.
I mean, I felt like Nebraska was
Yes.
the king of like giving up the 3rd and 9.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think their third down percentage was terrible, but it just seemed like
Their 3rd and long percentage was terrible.
Seemed like
Okay.
the higher the magnitude on the third down, the worse they did.
yep.
So it felt
very
like, at least.
it was very frustrating.
Mhm.
And yeah,
I would say
Sean was very frustrated
Figuring
against
out-
UCLA.
yeah, figuring out the pressure. Like, what are you going to have to do, and what don't you need to do based on the defensive line? Like, how much of a pressure will you get from your front 4 D line, and then how are you going to have to supplement that in those third downs? Like, finding that balance of what type of pressures you're going to need and how exotic you need to be to get pressure.
And that's where Phil Snow being involved with Butler, I think, will make a big difference.
Mhm.
Yep. I think that's it. I think it's the ability to get off the field
Mhm.
on third down.
All right, Abby, you got another one?
Yeah. Do you see Nebraska and Holgerson using its tight ends more in 2025?
Yes, I do. I mean, they got one. They got a big time one, in my opinion.
Harburg.
In Harburg, yeah.
I felt like they were using him a lot more at the end when Holgerson took over. Like all of a sudden, Fedoni became more involved. Luke Lindenmeyer became more involved. Borkacher.
100.
So I mean, now you got the big horse
coming off double hip surgery.
Well,
And
what
Carter
they
Nelson.
got now that they maybe lacked a little bit was a guy that can run up the seam and beat people. I mean, just outrun them.
Mm-hmm.
Fedoni wasn't that guy. He wasn't going to outrun too many people.
He was misused though. Like Fedoni, I don't think any of us would call an elite blocker, but I think laterally he was pretty good. The problem was they tried to use him side to side.
Are you saying vertically he was pretty
vertically? Yeah, vertically he was pretty good. Laterally he was not. And
but he didn't have great speed.
You'll be surprised what he runs at the combine.
Sean
you will be surprised.
is his agent.
Did you see him running at the Senior Bowl? He looked pretty freaking good. To the point where all the negative Nellies got quiet pretty quick.
I'm taking Heinrich in a 40 though.
Oh, Harburg, in terms of miles per hour, was one of the fastest guys on the team.
I'm taking Heinrich up the seam.
Yeah. So we should listen to the weapons we just reeled off there. Like, I hope they use them.
Carter Nelson.
They've got some unique unicorn type players there that need to start.
If it's just listen, Heinrich, Carter Nelson, Lindenmeyer would be a great three.
Yeah, Lindenmeyer was good down.
Selfishly, I wish they would have recognized the Nelson injury at the 4-game point.
Yeah.
But they thought they probably had plans that they could still use him. That was kind of the rope they had to walk there.
And you don't wonder what Carter probably wanted to play.
Who knows? He'll probably get a 5th year down the road anyway. So
he won't be available in the spring. It'll be big for him in the summer to get back ready to roll.
And maybe he'll gain a little weight. He needs, I think, to add a little bit.
He's going to. Yeah, he will. He
All
has
right,
to.
Final question.
Okay. If you could have any animal as a pet and it be friendly as a golden retriever, what would you pick?
Probably do a tiger or a bear.
Thought this one out.
Well, think about it. Like, how awesome would that be to have like a 600-pound bear just walking around your house
in your side yard?
We had an uninvited pet in our house this week. We had a mouse get loose in our house.
Oh no!
Yeah, I could have a tiger chase it.
Sean, go ahead.
I caught the son of a gun. Though.
This is amazing South Lincoln story. In North Lincoln, mice are not a big deal.
I've never had a mouse in our house, and one that we know of, and I've already caught it.
They're pesky little fellas,
and they're fat. I mean, I felt like Rocky Balboa trying to chase the chicken.
Yep.
You know, when Mick's training him to get ready for.
You got him though.
Well, I had it cornered, but it got loose. But then I set up 12 traps. I mean,
did any of the traps bear fruit?
Only the one,
just the one
in the garage.
That's all he needed.
Well, maybe that's the thing. If there's
true,
one,
usually if there's one,
yeah, come on. You think there's one?
But yeah, that was our uninvited. But we haven't had another trap go off.
So what's your pet?
I like Robin's answer. I mean, I said on the chat a roosters.
What?
Yeah, I've always liked them. Since we had them, I loved when we had chickens and the roosters were mixed in, but they were vicious. If you could just tamp them down, I mean, they were vicious.
You could just
roosters are
tame
mean.
that sucker.
Well, and the thing you guys don't know about roosters is that
tell me about roosters.
Well, the thing you don't know is that thing they do in the morning, the cockle-doodle do. That's all day. It's not just doesn't stop.
Not just an alarm clock.
No, it would wake me up from naps.
My in-laws own chickens and roosters, and you're right.
Yeah,
it's a thing they do all the time, and you would want that.
We had them in the city. We were dead in the city, in the middle of the city, and there would be. We lived across the street from a school, and there would be policemen out there. I'd come home at like 3:00 in the afternoon, and there'd be a police getting the kids, helping them to their cars and everything, and the rooster just crowing away. And I'd look at the cop and I'd always think he's going to bust us, but they never did. And then when we got rid of the roosters, all the neighbors, or not all of them, but a few neighbors came over and said, "Where are they? We miss them." Yeah. They didn't mind the sound.
Their alarm clocks are gone.
Well, it's not alarm clock. It's just, I think it's a soothing sound kind of.
People thought you lived in like Tijuana or something. Just having roosters.
Wow.
Of all of
I had a
running around your front yard.
Yeah, a couple trucks. Yeah.
Of all of the options you could have picked, like a rhino or an alligator or an elephant, you picked a rooster.
Multiple roosters.
What was your answer, Sean?
Interesting.
God, I would probably go with like a koala bear.
Sweet.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Cuddly.
Your girls
They're mean
like
though.
that.
So if you tamed one down, then
Are they mean koala
Yeah.
bears?
Are panda bears
Yeah.
mean?
I don't know.
I mean, not that anyone.
My bear knowledge is.
I know
pretty
polar bears are like the meanest of the mean. Like if you ran into a polar bear,
They're
you're done.
killers.
Is that right?
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Like you.
So I'd go brown bear. I think so.
Yeah, the polar bears drinking those Coke bottles, they wouldn't be very nice.
A brown bear or a polar bear walking around your yard would be interesting if you didn't have to worry about it.
Might need a bigger yard though.
All right. On that note,
Depends.
thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll talk some Nebraska basketball, bracket, and more with Robin Washett. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. Final segment of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Robin Washett, Steve Sipple. Again, we're brought to you by the title sponsor of StayHome.Care. Call them at 402-205-2233. Learn more about all the services they can offer. They are there for you and the loved ones in your life to help provide the assistance you need when you may not be able to do it. Again, call them at 402-205-2233. Thanks to StayHome.Care, the title sponsor of the Husker Online Show. But let's get into Nebraska basketball, Robin, because just like when they thought we were out, they figure out to pull you back in.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden now there is a real viable path to the NCAA tournament with a run of home games and 3 road games, but 2 of the 3, I mean, pretty favorable road matchups in Big Ten road game context with Penn State and Northwestern there on the road. When you size it up today, what needs to happen to get back to an NCAA tournament?
I put the number at 19 for them to be
Regular season.
Yes, 19 wins going into the conference tournament to be in position. So then you're kind of on the bubble, and you're kind of leaving it up to chance still, but at least you're firmly in that conversation. If they get to 20, I think they are in, and we're talking about what seed they're going to be. And anything beyond 20 is just moving them higher and higher up the potential seed line. And like you said, Sean, the opportunity is there. And what's crazy is that going into January, the conversation was, well, can they just keep their head above water going into February, when all of a sudden that back end of the schedule really opens up with a lot of home games, like you said, and favorable road matchups. And they did it a weird way where they lost 6, but then won 3 straight, including, top of that UCLA game. So in theory, they kind of did keep their head above water. I mean, it was a weird, wild roller coaster ride, but here they are, and they are very much in the mix going into this favorable stretch. And so the opportunity is there, and they just got to take advantage of it. It starts with winning your home games. And then maybe if you can steal one, maybe even both of Penn State, Northwestern on the road, then I think you're sitting pretty coming to Selection Sunday.
So, God, I mean, it's pretty cut and dried, really. I don't think you want to leave it to chance going into the Big Ten tournament, but I can see Nebraska being very dangerous in that scenario. They're dangerous. The league's, some of it's starting to sort out, though. I mean, you like
Kinda.
Sean mentioned, Penn State, Northwestern kind of nosediving.
Northwestern's so beat up right now.
They're
They
beat
lost
up.
2 of their top 3 players for the year.
Penn State's they've just sort of bottomed out. It looks
Minnesota's probably the worst team.
Yeah, from a metric standpoint.
Is it?
They are, yeah.
like. See,
for now.
Penn State, Washington's not the worst.
Well, left on the schedule. is what we're
left
talking
on
about.
the schedule.
Penn State, did they show that stat right, Robin? They played like 8 straight quad ones.
Probably.
I mean, something like that, where they lost all 8. So it was a little deceiving. Like Washington is struggling, but they've played like a hard schedule.
Yeah, and so that's the thing about this conference is we're talking about, okay, they can go beat Northwestern, they can go beat Penn State. Well, it's the Big Ten, and
Still not easy.
Yeah, I mean, there are no easy outs. Nebraska got everything they could handle from the worst place or the last place team in the conference at Washington. So it just goes to show you that while the opportunity is there, Nebraska cannot lose its edge. And that was one of the things I talked to Fred Hoiberg and Raleigh Wooster about before the Ohio State game was all right, you got momentum back on your side. There's good vibes going within the program. After those 3 straight wins, how do you maintain that? And now they got to find, their approach was after that Wisconsin loss, Fred Hoiberg had the quote, so every game needs to be our Super Bowl. Our margin for error is so thin that we cannot take anything for granted the rest of the way. And their ability to maintain that edge and that intensity and that sense of urgency that got their season back on track will ultimately define what the season becomes.
They'll have an advantage down the stretch over some teams that are out of it. Like Penn State, they're not playing for anything. Nebraska should be still playing for something. Northwestern really not playing for anything.
Iowa
Iowa really God, Iowa's hit
They're-
the
Is
Is he in
skids.
trouble,
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Like, and man, they missed on DeVries.
At this point, I would be surprised if Fran McCaffrey's back next season.
they could have had Darren DeVries. Like, they somehow screwed that up.
Yeah,
Where's DeVries now?
West
West
Virginia,
Virginia.
first
Oh.
year.
Could he still leave?
Could he'll get a call?
Right. He could leave West Virginia.
But
I remember when he took that job, the discussion was, well, that's it for Iowa. Then there was people, Sean, that said, no, it's not it. He could leave West
Well, his son
Virginia.
Tucker.
But here's
who
the deal:
will be done
Iowa basketball, they're like 4th on their totem pole right now within their own athletic department.
on NIL.
Yeah, so like it's not great. Like they're having a hard time getting players, and I was talking with some Iowa media members when I was out there in Iowa City, and they said a lot of the reason they maintain the guys that they have is because of their loyalty to McCaffrey. Well, if McCaffrey's out of the picture, then what are you going to do there? So is Iowa that attractive of a job if you're Darren DeVries? Because he can probably get something bigger than Iowa.
Could new blood though bring in new money?
Well, I think what you're saying is he
Could.
already has a job better than Iowa.
Yeah.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
And the Big 12, from a basketball perspective, is every bit as good or better than the Big 10.
For sure. And they've like just compare the NIL operations. There was a rumor, and this was again during my conversations with Iowa media members, that what was it, Gronowski or whatever, the quarterback they just got from South Dakota State for football, that his NIL package was worth as much or more than Iowa's entire basketball team NIL. So that's what they're dealing with. And it's just hard to compete when you're not getting money. When the wrestling program is getting more money than your basketball program, it's hard.
Boy, and they about lost to Nebraska in wrestling. I mean, Nebraska was like one thing away from winning that duel.
So long story short is Nebraska. So let's just look at the Ken Palm analytics here. So with their remaining games here, they're only projected to win 2 more games of their final 7. right?
Nebraska.
Oh, Nebraska.
Nebraska.
I don't
But-
agree with those metrics.
But here's the thing you got to consider. Of the 4 losses to Maryland, Northwestern, Penn State, and Michigan, all of them are within 1 to 2 points.
Yeah.
Nebraska has a 45% chance or better to win all 4 of those games. So they're heavy favorites against Minnesota, heavy favorites against Iowa. And if they can find a way to win a couple more of those coin flip games, they are in the driver's seat.
And from a seeding perspective, is your window, would you say like a 9 to 11 range?
I think
like,
9 to 11. And if you're Nebraska, you want to get off that 11, and I think you want to stay out of the 8-9, because the 8-9s, that's a tough matchup in your first round thing, and then you got to go play the 1 seed. So like honestly, like ideally,
10-7.
if you're in that window, be in the 11, or sorry, the 10,
The
the
10.
10, I think is your sweet spot.
Interesting.
no matter what, if they make it, they're going to have a very difficult matchup.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to play somebody really good.
but I would rather not have to play an 8 and then a 1. We saw how that worked last year.
Right.
All right. Well, lots to follow, and all of us are engaged here down the stretch because Nebraska basketball has made it to. It's going to be an interesting final 6 weeks of the season. Sip and I will be back later in the week as well with HuskerOnline headlines. I think we're shooting for Friday
Oh, we're shooting for Friday.
or Thursday. We still have to. A lot of it will determine on our guest schedule.
Okay.
But we are off to Nashville, so. We thank you for joining us on this tape version of the Husker Online show. Back again later this week with Husker Online headlines.